Welcome to Hope for Everybody, a channel that exists to highlight people and places that are all about providing hope to people in need. Check out today's episode.
Thank you for joining me this afternoon. This is Chandler again with Hope for Everybody, and my guest today is Dr. Brian Grandjean of Tracks4kids from Allen, Texas.
Yeah.
Dr. Grandjean, thank you for being with me today. Tell me about your organization.
Well, we're called Tracks4kids. We've got two general goals. One is to educate the public on what autism is. We look at what the public knows, what the DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual says, and then we convert that to the reality. And we give free seminars to the public on how to help these kids, how to help the parents, how to get educational resources. And then on top of that, we help develop creativity tools that the clinicians can use to better help those kids. We've been doing it since 2013. So,
what led you into this field of study? Do you have a child that's autistic? Do you know other people? What's the situation?
My wife and I are both on the spectrum. So what really led me into this was a clinical intervention. I was working with one Dr. Vernon Johnson. He's an amazing clinician, psychiatrist.
I've heard that name, yeah.
He's well known in North Texas, a big teddy bear. And I was working in his office. He was kind of allowing me to be there for free for the first year because he was acting as a mentor and helped me understand the clinical side after I had gotten the licensing. And next thing you know, he looks at me and goes, "Brian, you are the most Aspergian adult I have ever seen." And me getting the nickname of Tigger in college, I was already bouncing all over the place, and I was actually like moving for my next client. And I said, "I'll get back to you in 3 days." Got back to him, and sure enough, I actually met all the criteria. And that got me looking more at my clients that were already coming in, and they were almost all on the spectrum. And when I looked at them, they fit all the criteria. And I was like, why are they coming to me? What is it? And then things clicked. And I realized, well, because they relate. So that was what started.
They relate to your situation.
Yeah, because I spoke the same language they speak, a very black and white, very functional language, which is something the community has a hard time understanding. The language is not abstract like standard English is. Their language is very structured. It's very functional. So if they tell you that something bends, they'll say it's a bender piece that makes it bend. They're not going to say hinge. They're going to say it's a bender piece. And so if we paid a little more attention, it actually would make more sense than our standard English. But that's what started us.
Well, that's interesting, of course, because people ask me, what made you get involved in prison ministry? And of course, I became a Christian when I was in prison almost 30 years ago. So that's the same thing, right?
Yep,
Absolutely.
I would totally get there.
Interestingly enough, I'll tell you a funny story. I had a couple come in my office, and their son had just been charged with a pretty horrible charge, and he was getting out on probation, and he walked in the office, and he hadn't been in there 5 seconds, and I said, he's autistic, and they looked at me and went, how did you know that? And I said, because I've been doing this for about 20 years now, and we've had lots of guys come through our ministry that are on the spectrum, and so I recognized it immediately, and they went, he's been our son from birth. We never knew. We've had him see countless people. Nobody's ever said anything. She said it wasn't until he got this charge that we had him examined by a professional who did some testing and told us he was autistic and had Asperger's on the spectrum. I don't completely understand the difference between the two, but I'm sure you can educate us. What is the difference between the saying autism or Asperger's, the two? What are is there a difference, or does one describe the other, or what?
There's definitely a difference, and some of this is on the diagnostic and clinical side. So the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, edition 4, would have used Asperger's or pervasive developmental disorder not otherwise specified. Translation, autism. Several years ago, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual was updated worldwide. It became the edition 5, and then they gave a whole different classification of autism, which meant that we had spectrum. So you've got level 1, level 2, and level 3. Level 1, you have a child who is very high functioning. Socially, you usually can't get them to shut up, but they're stuck on a particular interest. a rabbit hole, so to speak. And then you've got a level 2, and a level 2 is someone who they can learn, but it's very difficult for them. And a level 3, we have maybe 300 words that's actually understood and spoken by that child. When you're talking about Asperger's, though, Asperger's is what we now call social communication disorder, which would be the farthest end of the spectrum. Depending on which clinician you talk to, they'll say, no, it's not part of autism, or it's not. But as a professional working in the field for well over 20 years, it's definitely part of the spectrum. It's just on the very end of it. So the highest functioning ones, the ones who can go to college, who can go to vocational schools, get back to the community, they're those people. Now, what's the difference between the autism level 1 and the actual Asperger's / social communication disorder? Technically, very little. They're very, very similar. It's more like level of severity. So, an individual who's autism level 1 might have a harder time reading some of the nonverbal cues. Whereas the person who is an Asperger's is probably able to read the verbal cues. They might not be able to respond to them as well, but they can read them. They see them. It's not that an autism level 1 can't, but it takes them longer to grasp that. Hopefully that answers your question.
Sure. So it sounds to me, if I was just to put this in layman's terms, because I am a layman, it would be that Asperger's and autism, from what I'm getting from you, are essentially the same. Asperger's would be those at the other end, but when you say other end, you mean like toward the level 1, not the level 3.
Yeah.
They would be in
High
that
functioning.
same high functioning, able to go to college, able to do more things than somebody who has maybe autism 1.
Yeah, and that's 40% of the autism population falls in those guidelines. The challenge with that, and part of the reason why Tracks exists, is because our tests are wholly inadequate for that population. About 30% of all those kids that get those tests get rated as non-autistic. And that's because the tests, if you read between the lines, it shows all the traits of the autism on these tests. But they're not severe enough to rate autism. But they have all the social problems that are in the diagnosis. The other challenge is, if you look at autism, autism itself has a lot of positives. So these kids are creative. They're amazing. They can think of things we can't think of. They're fascinating guys. Their sense of humor is almost always clean, but it's wordplay. We had an entire role-playing campaign of Dungeons & Dragons with these kids, and I swear everything was a heady situation because they saw a large Lego head, and so everything had the word head in it for 45 minutes. Okay, but they were intellectually very functional. They knew what they were doing. They could express their ideas. They're very smart. They just have trouble socializing.
So I'm just betting that, are you a fan or do you despise the movie Rain Man?
I don't despise it. The best way to put that is when you've seen one autistic kid, you've seen one autistic kid. Rain Man is one autistic individual.
Right.
And he would be the type that you think of that's probably really a level 2.
That's about what I was going to say.
But
what you said.
But his like interest in that particular area is so in depth that he basically has like Batman's IQ in that particular area. And you will see that in a lot of children who particularly are level 1s, and they'll have this massive ability in a chosen field. It's kind of like Einstein with all of his theories of relativity, yet he failed math. Okay, so it's the same premise, and I'd be very surprised if he wasn't autistic himself.
Yeah, very interesting. I just wondered, there's so many television shows that people get ideas from, and they want to lump everybody into that, but that's not all. And that's what I've learned is in dealing with the autistic and young men on the spectrum that we've dealt with, there's a wide range. You have some that are far more high functioning than others, some that are far more social than others, and there's just a wide range.
Oh yeah. And then you have another issue that comes too, and that is that the brain mapping for an ADHD kid and those on the autism overlap significantly. So there's points where both of those diagnoses have same traits. So you also have another factor coming into play, and then that just makes it even more different.
This is going to sound almost, I wouldn't say anti-intellectual, but certainly show my lack of intelligence in this area. But when I first looked at your website, I saw one of the programs that you offer is the what was it called? It was called the learning leadership, robotics, and history program. Right? And the first thing that came to my mind was the old song by Styx, Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto.
My kids wouldn't even know what that song was.
Right. And it was so funny because then I started looking at the lyrics and I thought, wow, these lyrics are kind of applicable to this whole thing.
Yeah, they are.
And I thought of your agency and certainly my agency dealing with prison ministry. Thank you very much, Mr. Roboto, for doing the job that nobody wants to, right? So thank you for doing the job that nobody wants to. There are people, of course, that just, they cannot work with people with special needs. I've found this out in prison ministry. People with intellectual developmental disorders and people with mental health issues and people with drug histories, people with sexual sin, whatever. There's this whole gamut of people out there that there are people that just don't want to work with them and can't work with them.
Well, that's particularly true with all the counselors.
Yeah.
A good counselor knows the areas they can work with well and the ones that they might have some difficulty with.
Yeah.
And so we'll refer out to those who we think really need something else. Like a child who has a level 3, we can't technically help in our clinic as well. Why? Well, because they have to have cognitive functioning high enough for our cognitive behavioral techniques to actually work. And so we've got other locations that we know we can take them to that do deal with that and are able to address those issues. It's not that we don't want to, though. It's more like we know the resources.
Tell us about that program, Leadership, Robotics, and History. What exactly does that consist of? How does that work?
That's kind of our flagship. That's what started us. Most of these autistic kids love trains. So it's either dinosaurs, trains, or some type of space funkiness, or anime. That one's a big one. And so we were kind of looking at what would get these kids' attention, and we went with the Frisco railway station and kind of had some good beginning programs with them, but we found that they didn't understand children. And so we kept searching, and we got a random phone call from, and I'm still not sure how they found out about us, from the Interurban Railway and Plano Conservancy in downtown Plano. And they have a train depot in downtown, which is really funky, cool, and still functional, and they've got like a real train car outside in the park. And they said, look, we really want you guys to be here. Can you do something for us? And I was like, we'll see, why not? So we went over there, and they basically said, look, while you're here, you can have our entire museum. So this 40-foot by 40-foot main room, 30-foot by 20-foot other room, and the park outside, and the train car, and next thing we know, we've got about 5 different stations that we put in the museum. It's 6 sessions, 2 hours a pop. And the basic function is to get these kids to understand that how to speak. You know, if you love Legos, that's great. Don't talk about it for 5 hours, okay? You make 3 comments about it, and then ask a question. And so we've got games that are basically like, you know, duck, duck, train, where it's basically the same, you know, go around, tag, you're it, run around, except you have to say a topic 3 times and then switch the topic. And then we'll do physical activities with the kids where they have to teamwork. So we'll do escape the lava pool outside, or we'll do a foam lightsaber duel with Jedis who eventually all have to attack my staff. Luckily, one of my guys is trained in sword fighting, so he can defend himself against 5 or 6 chaotic little kids who.
Very good.
But the whole program's designed to teach friendship, to get their self-esteem up, to get them to want to play with other kids, to build trust, and to know this is a safe environment. So we've usually got twice the number of parents. We've got on average 8 kids, but our parents number close to 20 usually, because we like to make sure everything is safe. We've got museum staff that's there. I've usually got 2 intern staff that are there on top of myself. And then I'll usually have 1 or 2 doctors coming in through those 6 sessions that we'll visit and actually kind of give their 2 cents and help out.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun.
And then, so the name of your organization, of course, is Tracks4kids. And we were talking before we started, and we mentioned that you don't just service kids, though. You have adults that come to these programs as well, I guess?
Yeah, the parents. Because the LRH program is designed for both the parents and the kids. How else are you going to get the parents to talk to each other when each one knows some tools that they use with their kid that the other one doesn't know? So they'll go in there and they'll literally talk with the parents. They'll feel like they're at home because these are parents that understand what they're going through. And then each one shares their own tools. And it's not what I call an official clinical assessment because it's parents. We don't have a clinician involved in that.
Right.
But yet, if you were to listen to the parents, that's what goes on. They find other tools. And then a lot of times, some of these kids will then make play dates with the other kids. So outside of our activities, they're meeting, they're socializing, they're meeting in an arcade, they're having a good time, whereas before they didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
So it's for both. And then a lot of times we'll do the free seminars, and we'll do that for clinicians, schools, hospitals, teachers. We go just about everywhere doing those. And those are free to the public, just to kind of get the public to have a better idea as to what's going on.
If you're liking this content, don't miss out on future episodes. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now back to the show.
I don't know if you noticed it, but on our website, and the tagline for our organization is God plus community equals hope. And we think community is central for everyone. Doesn't matter who you are, what problem you're facing. I like to say, to borrow a title from a chapter in a book, Lone Rangers are dead Rangers. Right? It's not good to be a Lone Ranger. We need community. We need involvement. Right?
You need a village to raise one child.
Yeah.
And with an autistic child, you need an entire city.
Yeah.
And so, it's not that these kids give back more than what we give in. But in order to get them to that point, we have to give twice the amount that we give an average kid, because it takes them twice as long to adapt. But once they adapt, their knowledge usually exceeds what the majority of the population knows. And that's, I joke about it. I often tell them, I say, look, I would give anything to replace all of Congress with high-functioning autistic individuals. They would be ethical, we would get the job done, it'd be slow, they'd argue, they'd bicker, but they'd be honest. And I've had a few parents laugh about that.
I think it's true for both of our populations, because like I said, we service a lot of the same people and then some. And I think it's true generally across the board that the more we give to them, when they do, learn, they come back, they give more than we give to them. But it takes time to get them there, and it takes more effort to get them there than it would the other people.
My interns are all former clients. And so they come in and they do it for free because they know what they gain from it. Almost all of them are in college. I've got one that's graduated college. He's now working on a doctoral degree right now. I got another that's starting into a medical doctoral degree. Both are interns. Okay, and so they'll come in, we'll do an intern practice, they'll help with the creativity challenges, and then they'll help staff our LRH program. Okay, I'll take them out afterwards, we'll review how things went, and we'll usually go out and celebrate and say, guys, you did a great job.
Well, listen, one of the other things, there was another line in that song, Do Me Arigato, Mr. Roboto, and it said, the problem is plain to see that too much technology is the problem, which leads into your next game, Magic and Castles, where you have role-playing games with paper and pencil.
Yeah, we prefer the RPGs.
Yeah, with paper and pencil. Tell us about that. How does that work?
Oh, those are fun. So when we started doing that, that was because we had these kids who, they had the morality, but they kept wanting to do like bad things. So they'd get in trouble in school. And so it's okay, guys.
That's when they come my way. When they do the bad things.
And I'm trying to get them before they get all that way.
Right, there you go.
But they were starting that way.
Right.
And so what we did is we said, okay, yeah, we'll do an RPG with you, dude, but you have to be a paladin. And he's like, well, what's that? That's a knight. You can't do anything dishonest. You can't do these nests. You can't backstab. You can't hurt people. You can't. You have to be the one who stands in between the defenseless. You have to be the strong man. And so we kind of sold it in terms of the knight in shining armor, which is basically what a paladin is. It's just he's a cleric. He's holy. And so it forced them to, every time they would try to do something wrong, it'd be like, oh, no, the paladin can't do that. Because paladin actually is good. Dude, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. You can't do that. And he finally got the gist of it, and so his behavior sort of switched. And yeah, he was still a prankster, but he was thinking about what he was doing. So there became a difference between a prank, which was okay, and the bullying behavior that we were seeing. and the bullying behavior stopped. The pranks kept going, to my detriment, but he got a lot better, and he did really well.
So you use the role-playing games to kind of help teach morality and kind of flip the script on some of them where they're headed in a more positive direction?
For the morality, and then it's a safe place to socially interact with other kids who aren't going to judge you on any mistakes. You go into a classroom and these kids feel judged, whether it happens or not. You go into a role play and everything is a joke, everything is funny. I had one of the groups who actually saved Scooby-Doo as a cyborg, and they thought it was hilarious, and they had a blast doing it. But everyone's laughing, everyone's joking, and when one child doesn't understand something, the other kids who might be higher functioning will look at them and they'll explain. Well, no, it actually works this way. You're okay. You didn't do anything wrong. Just usually when you talk to someone, it's this. You're fine. You're playing in character. That's cool. And rarely do I ever get judgments from my guys. They're really helpful on those that are less functional than they are. And usually the end result is they become more functional because the ones that are there are already higher functioning than they are. So it kind of raises them up a little bit instead of pulls them down.
Awesome.
So
now you guys also do a series of seminars and workshops. You do seminars covering diagnosis, treatment, the cognitive processes involved in people who have autism and are on the spectrum. And then you do some workshops, and they were pretty long-winded. So give me kind of a quick summary of the workshops that you offer for people who might be watching.
Well, first one is just, if you have an autistic child, what the heck do I do? And we go over a book that's a 40-page book that we have, and we give that out for free too over PDF. And it explains, okay, my child's autistic. What are my first steps? Well,
excuse me, is that PDF online?
We don't have it online, but you can
don't have
ask
it online?
for it, and then we'll gladly give it over.
Okay.
It doesn't. It's for the public to use.
I just wondered if we could tag that in the video and offer it online
Yeah, I don't
to the people.
I don't have a problem with that. If you want to do that, I'd be more than willing to actually provide that for you.
Why don't you get it up on your website and then send me a link to it?
Okay.
Have your web people add it to your website and send me a link to it, and then I'll just...
That particular website can't do that because of its functionality. I'll see what we can do about the other website, because it's Emerald's practice documentation, and I'll see what I can do about hooking that into the Emerald practice website and see if I get it through there.
Okay.
It won't attach to the Tracks one very well because of the dynamics and how that system works.
Well, it doesn't have to be marked or anything like that. I just need a place to put the file. I mean, if you want to send it directly to me, I could put it on our website, but I think it'd be better on your website. That way it gets them to your website.
Oh, no, and I'll definitely try to see what we can do.
Talk to your web team and see if they'd be willing to put it up there, and if they do, send me a link, and then regardless of which website, and then we can get it linked to you for the people and the viewers.
No problem.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think it'd be great to make that available. What other websites do you offer? I mean, what other, workshops do you offer?
Well, there's one that's called, its name has changed a little bit. Its original name was Asperger's A New Hope, but it really is, its current name would be Social Communication Order A New Hope, because it's the new diagnostic name for Asperger's. And it goes over the cognitive ways these kids think. And it's like, how do they think differently? Why is that a problem? And why is it a bonus? And so it goes over the pros and cons and how you might interact with that kid differently to use the resources they already naturally have, but also to counter some of the deficits so that they can build up those into strengths. Let's see, of some of the others, the bigger presentation, and if you get on Starlink, you might be able to find it, deals with access and how do we get these kids onto the college campuses and be successful. There's a 50% dropout rate right now for those on the autism population.
I've heard that, yeah.
Ours is 80, a success rate. And so the reason we're that high at success is because our job isn't to get them in fast. Our job is to get them into a community college, let them pass the first course, let them succeed in the first course. Next semester, you give another course. Maybe you give 2 courses. By the time you're in the 3rd semester, you've either gotten 1 course a semester or you're up to 3 courses that you've done in 1 semester. At that point, they've adapted enough, and now we can get them into college. Now we can get them into a vocational school. And so they go and they succeed and they get it done.
Crawl before you walk.
You got it.
Before you run.
Just takes us a little longer.
Yeah. But it's still quite effective. It's breaking some odds.
It's breaking a lot of odds.
That's awesome.
We just got 3 of our guys accepted into college as of the last 2 months. So
as you know, Hope for Everybody is going to be a new online platform. It's actually already live. That's purpose is going to connect nonprofits with each other to help us communicate and collaborate effectively. And we certainly are really glad for you to be here today and for us to be able to learn more about what Tracks4kids does. We are offering to anyone who gets started with us the initial 3 months free while we build the organization and get all the nonprofits together online. And we're going to be doing more things like this and getting more organizations involved so that we can learn from and collaborate with each other. Would you say that, you know, one of the reasons why I'm doing this, I gave you the example earlier about the car repairs and things like that. And you already mentioned earlier, tell me about what you're aware about what we're doing and how important it is.
Well, a lot of the times, most of the nonprofits don't know the others exist. We have a really hard time finding them. The website development, the search engines aren't optimal for that. And the agencies that we did have that did that in the past, like Great Nonprofits, for other reasons I won't go to here, have kind of died out. They no longer are functional or at the level where they used to. And so finding the other nonprofits is hard enough. The other one is that a lot of the cities that are starting these agencies up, trying to connect all the nonprofits, McKinney being one of them, they're still new at the game. And so the people that are doing it aren't necessarily themselves invested in it. And that's a concern because the nonprofits don't exist for profit. They exist for non-profit reasons, and the whole idea is to help the community. And unfortunately, the cities still have a for-profit format, which doesn't help us get to our people. So your actions, where you're trying to actually get these nonprofits together, where we can communicate, figure out who has what resources, is definitely helpful. Particularly for families who have a kid or an adult who's on the spectrum, and they're like, well, the behavior's weird, where do we start? Who could I go to? Who might actually be able to help?
We've actually had quite a few guys come through our ministry that have been on the spectrum, one degree or another. We haven't had anybody at the higher 3 like you were describing, but I definitely think we've had some 1s and 2s along the way.
Yeah.
So I'm really just glad to know about your organization, and hope at some point we can communicate and collaborate more about that and how we can help your organization grow and how we can network together.
Sounds great.
And refer other people to you. We are in the process. I'm kind of excited. I don't know if you had heard this or knew this, but we're rolling out a whole other set of modules now where we're actually going to have a place for donors and for volunteers. So now the website is going to allow donors to do a search of nonprofit organizations and find nonprofit organizations they want to connect with and learn about them and give to them. They're not going to be giving through our platform. They'll give through your platform. We're not getting involved in that, but we're just connecting them again.
No, that's great.
And same with volunteers. We're going to have a place for volunteers to be able to go in and type in, for example, autism in the search engine and come up with a list of organizations that work with autistics and maybe find a place that they can volunteer. So that's going to be a one-stop shop for nonprofits, basically, to be able to connect and collaborate with each other, and then to be able to find potential donors and volunteers.
That'd be great. That
can help our organization, and it's all part of the same tiered membership and things that we do. So I'll be sure to send you a link and get you so that you guys can get started on the website, and you guys will participate in the front end of this when we're doing a lot of heavy marketing and social media and other things to get the word out.
Sounds good.
So I really appreciate you being here with us today, Dr. Granji.
If you'd like to be a part of the show and tell us your story, please visit us online at hopeforoverybody.org.